I'm Nick Hughes, and this is Founders Live Conversations. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Founders Live Conversations, where we tell unique, inspiring stories of entrepreneurship from all over the world. I'm Nick Hughes. I am founder and CEO of Founders Live, and today we have a really great guest, Thane Ringler, and really excited to have him join us to really discuss living with full integrity for success. And, Thane, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me, Nick. Excited to be here and share this hour with you and everyone else. It's going to be a really fun, hopefully life-giving conversation.
Very good. Very good. And, for everyone, I do want to mention that we, had a previous podcast conversation that I would encourage you to go listen to as well. That might even be some background, so as you're watching this afterwards, you're listening to this afterwards, these two, the podcast and then this video conversation, or if you're listening to this on podcast, you've got a 1-2 punch here. But, Thane, I would like to hand it over to you and have you walk us through some thoughts and ideas for a little bit of time. And then, I have a number of questions I know that I'll be having, but also as the group here, we can answer questions and really dive in deep. So, feel free to jump in. If you are going to, hold on, I will. Were you wanting to share your screen? Yeah, I just gave you the ability to,
Cool.
Share your screen. All right.
Awesome. So let's go ahead. Let me see if I can't. All right. We're going to share this screen here. So today, I want to share a little bit about, like Nick talked about, integrity and necessary deep work and what those kind of have in store. Can you see the screen right there, Nick? Is that working out good?
Looks good. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So before we dive in, again, this is a conversation, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Any questions you have along the way, let me know in the chat and we'll get to that. It'll be about 10, 15 minutes here and then we can chat about it all. So a little bit about me first. Some fun facts. I live in Denver, Colorado right now. I'm married to my wife, my beautiful wife there in the picture, Evan Ryan Ringler. That happened just over a year ago. So still new to this marriage thing. I love to snowboard, to golf, also to dance, basically anything athletic. I love to do it. And I was born and raised in Hutchinson, Kansas, small town USA, kind of in the middle of the country. So that's a little bit about my background. And then what I've done, I was a professional golfer for about 4 years, authored a best-selling book coming out of that. I founded and hosted a podcast for over 4 years, became a speaker, started a side business, and worked as a development coach now for over 3 years. And that's what I do now, which is building invincible teams and individuals by unlocking human performance through team communication, self-awareness, and self-leadership. So we can unpack some more of that as we go along. But as we mentioned today, we're just going to share a few thoughts and words on integrity and necessary deep work and what that looks like in living a meaningful life. And so starting out with this idea of integrity, I think it's really crucial for all of us. And it's something that I've really focused on in the last 2 to 3 years of my own work. Integrity comes from this Latin word, integer, which means wholeness or complete. And so integrity is really this idea of living in wholeness, living as our whole selves. There's a great book, Strangers to Ourselves by Timothy D. Wilson. In it, he deep dives into this idea of understanding ourselves and our wiring. And he talks about the difference between the conscious and the unconscious minds. And what's really fascinating about this book is this researcher spent this entire time diving into studies and analyzing this idea of consciousness, only to find out that it's kind of depressing the deeper you go into it, because you realize that more of your life is controlled by your adaptive unconscious mind than your conscious mind. It's 90+%. So the deeper we dive into that, the more depressing it can be, and feeling like we don't have as much control over our actions than we think we do. But the interesting thing about this point is that he ends the book by saying that what's actually helpful is by aligning who we want to be with our actions. He says that, we can dive as deep as we want into this thing called self-awareness, But really what's helpful in it is by aligning our conscious minds of who we think we are with our actions, and that produces health or wholeness. So that's the idea of integrity. It's saying, hey, I'm going to be the person I say I am, or the person that I want to be. I'm going to live that out in daily life. And the reason why it's integrity plus necessary deep work is because in order to do that, we have to go through necessary deep work to get there, which is really the process of understanding ourselves, of sitting with who do we really want to be, who is a person that I feel called to be, and then working on daily aligning with that and living with integrity of that identity that we have individually. So as we dive into that kind of the core of that, there's a great quote that I love by Chris Wertz, who said, if you can't self-observe, you can't self-correct. If you can't self-observe, you can't self-correct. And this is the idea that in order to be able to steer ourselves well, we have to be able to see ourselves well. We have to be able to observe why we do what we do and what situations causes it and how that comes about, so that we can start steering ourselves and guiding ourselves into the person that we feel called to be, living with integrity in that. And as this whole community is about being a founder, it's really important in order to steer our companies well, right? If we can't steer ourselves well, then it's gonna be hard to steer our companies well too. And so this is really a foundational principle. And for the work that I do now with Giant, it's this idea of being a 100x leader. And what that means is that we're pursuing 100% health individually. That means physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of those aspects, we are pursuing 100% health in for ourselves, because out of that, then we can lead others well. And that X part of it means we're multiplying it. We're bringing that into other people's lives and helping them be 100% healthy as well. And if we think about this idea of 100% healthy, again, it starts with this core of being self-aware. And self-awareness is always what precedes self-leadership. And so if we can't see ourselves well, we aren't gonna be able to lead ourselves well. And if we can't lead ourselves well, then we probably won't be leading others well or effectively either. So this idea of 100% health is built on this ability to know what we need and who we are, and as founders, how we best operate so that we can best run our companies and best lead the people that are part of them, or the customers or clients that we're serving in that. And if you look at it kind of like organizationally, right, self-awareness leads into self-leadership, which leads into team and organizational leadership, which then multiplies it to the people that are part of your team or the customers or clients that you're serving. So we can multiply the effect by starting with ourselves. And really, a lot of times we learn what to do by first learning what not to do. And I know for myself as a leader, back in college was when I really started to learn the core idea of integrity and why it matters so much. I was the team captain of the golf team my junior year, and we had a pretty good team. We were going to nationals. We qualified for nationals, and we liked our chances that year. But over spring break, myself and several others on the team made decisions and did actions that broke school rules and ended up coming out right before we were about to go to nationals. Thus, we lost a chance to compete in nationals my junior year and my senior year. And because of that, there are people on the team that didn't participate in those actions, but suffered the consequences for it. And they lost a chance to compete at nationals both junior and senior year. And what that really taught me is that, look, if you're going to take on leadership for other people, you have to be able to lead yourself well. And those weren't decisions I would want to make for myself anyways, but I made them not just for me, but for the entire team as well. And we paid the price. We suffered the consequences for that. But really what hurt more than the tournament itself was breaking trust with people that I knew and loved. And that took much longer to rebuild. And that was one of the first biggest moments of me realizing the importance of living with integrity, of leading out of wholeness, so that others can then be their best selves and leave and live out of wholeness as well. And the other one that really is pertinent now for me as a coach is that if I'm working with individuals on concepts like this, and I'm not living that out in my own life, then that will be producing a lack of health within myself, right? The second that we start trying to pretend to be something that we're not, we have that disconnect between our conscious and subconscious minds of saying we're this type of person, but our lives look completely different. And that produces dysfunction or a lack of health. And so for my work now, it's a great reminder and responsibility that if I'm going to be walking alongside others in this capacity, then I need to be leading myself well first so that I can best serve them in that work and live with integrity in that. Now, to do things like this, or just to wrap this up and we can start getting some conversations about it, to pursue self-awareness, a lot of times we need tools to help us along the way. And one of the best tools that I use now with Giant that they've created is called this Know Yourself to Lead Yourself tool. And this is a great visual display of what this process can entail and what this looks like. And you can see it here on the screen. So the Know Yourself to Lead Yourself is again, going that principle that we have to know ourselves first. We have to start being able to see ourselves clearly so we can steer ourselves, we can lead ourselves well, and thus multiply that on to the people we're serving within our work or within our lives. Now, all of us have tendencies. We have things that we do, right, that just are common and happen all the time, right? Could be any myriad of areas. For me, if I look on a personal level, one of the things I've realized my tendency is I'm not very aware of my own emotions a lot of times. So I tend to be a little bit unaware of how I'm feeling. Now, when I'm feeling hurt or experiencing emotions and I'm not conscious of them, I'm not recognizing them, my tendency that produces the action is I start busying myself with work or things to keep myself moving without having to address what I'm actually feeling. So that tendency leads to the pattern of me diving into or losing myself in work or tasks or busyness that ends up not reconciling how I'm feeling and produces the consequence of oftentimes entrenching in that even further and produces a reality of discontentment or disconnection, especially with my partner, my wife now. So by understanding that process, then I can say, okay, now how can I be aware of this tendency to start changing that pattern to produce a different action that will affect my reality in daily life? And that's a personal example, but on a work level, I think a lot of us can relate to this in the sense that one of my tendencies, and I think all of ours, is that when we have a hard problem to solve and we don't know the answer, we tend to avoid it, right? And so for me, when there's a project I'm doing, and I don't know how to solve it yet, and there's a bunch of other tasks to do as well, my tendency is, I don't know how to solve this problem. So my pattern is I'm going to avoid it, which tends to be putting off the most important priority, even though I know it's the most important priority, I keep putting off to a later date. And that consequence is I'm not pushing the business forward. And as a reality, I get more stuck in where I'm at. And so this tool is a great visual display of how we can practice knowing ourselves to lead ourselves. And by logging our tendencies and understanding them better, we can start seeing those patterns that create those actions that start informing and fueling our reality. And one of the other things about this tool that's so great is it's an infinity loop, meaning that we never graduate from the school of self-awareness. It's a process we're in our entire lives. We'll be continuing the process every single day, and there'll always be new things we're learning. And the other tool, just to share with you before we wrap up this little time here, is the 5 circles of influence tool. And really what this is all about is showing that why it's so important to start with self-awareness and self-leadership is because then it can have a ripple effect as it spreads throughout the circles of influence that each of us have in our lives. As you can see, there's 5 circles listed here: self, family, team, organization, and community. And as we focus on ourselves, as we work on leading ourselves well, knowing ourselves to lead ourselves well by pursuing intentionality with our own actions, that effect can then spread over to the family, to the team, to the organization and community beyond. We always have to start at the center and work our way out. But by pursuing intentionality in each of those circles, we can have a really drastic effect on the health of not only ourselves, but our family, our teams, our organization, especially as founders in our community abroad. And that is really the heart behind this work. If we can keep that big picture in mind as we focus on the individual, that will produce a lot more persistence as we continue in the journey, because it's not a quick overnight journey. It takes a lot of time, and it bears a lot of fruit along the way as well. So just some resources, and we can touch on these again, but Self-Leadership Academy is an online course, 2 of them that I created. One's on discipline, one's on self-awareness. Those are great for self-directed study. I do leader coaching as well as group coaching. Those are some great outlets if you're curious on that. There's a 5 voices assessment for free. It's a personality assessment, a great way to understand your wiring a little better. And then if you have an organization and want to work on this with a team, the Invincible Operating System is a great way to spread it throughout the organization. So those are some of the resources that are available from this work as well. And that's kind of the end of what I have today. So I'll pause the sharing here. Oh, okay, stop share. There we go. So Nick, you wanna take it back?
Yeah. Thank you, Thane. That's such great information. And as we go through here, and I know some of you might have slipped in here a little recently. So Thane went through about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes of some topics here. But we're really talking about living with integrity, alignment, and that's where I want to start with my question. And I've got a number of things here that I want to touch on, but please, anyone, if you have questions, put them in the chat, or we can, you can just unmute and jump in here. And also, it's not just questions. If you have comments or thoughts and all that, look, we're all in this, and I think you pointed out early, we're in this journey, and I think without the work, we can fall into misalignment. So how does one know if they're aligned or not, or how does one assess? Let's start there. The assessment of integrity in our life. And then it's not just life, but as we're talking about as a founder and an entrepreneur, it's like double important to really be aligned with not just yourself as you're operating, but also like, okay, where am I going here and what are we doing? And then as a leader, being aligned to actually like lead a team. So how does one assess that?
Yeah, really good question. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too. The first thing that comes to mind is that this idea of what's it like to be on the other side of the mirror from you, right? And that's kind of like a great place to start. Like, what's other people's experience of you like? Especially as founders, there's going to be people that we have on our team or within our organization that rely on us to lead them well and lead the organization well. And we rely on them to fulfill their important duties to keep the business moving forward and do things that we can't do. And so knowing what it's like to be on the other side of you is a really important foundational piece to bringing health to your whole organization. So I love that question of like, what is it like to be on the other side of me? Because I think we can all kind of sit with that question and kind of understand it to a deeper level. And I think that'll lead to a really great exercise of self-reflection on understanding ourselves better. But I think even beyond that, the point of what you're asking, I really think it starts with clarifying this question. That I think is a really great clarifying question is, who have you been created, equipped, and called to be? And the reason why I like this kind of question as a whole, and I think we talked about some of the podcasts, is just that it talks about kind of holistically who we are. Created as that natural wiring, that disposition, the skills or gifts we have kind of from birth, just naturally. Equipped is, what are the life experiences given you up to this point that are unique to you, because everyone's life is different. And then finally, called, what is that passion or drive or fire within your soul that just won't die? And when you kind of look at the convergence of all 3 of those, you can really get a good idea of that vision that is compelling and driving you forward, that starts directing a lot of your identity, right? Because there's that identity piece of who we are and that vision of who we feel called to be in the world. And when you get clear on those things, then we can start working on living in alignment with those things. But if we don't get clear on those, if we don't have a direction, like a true north to start traveling towards, then it's hard to be aligned to anything because we don't know where we're going. We're kind of aimless in that sense. What are your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, this is, thank you for that. And yeah, I would just add, well, first of all, I really like what you're suggesting on, having that real holistic thought around what is it like to be on the other side of me. And, I think that that's just such a self-aware process, question, and thought approach. Not a lot of people are just like, it's not easy to actually approach life in that most self-aware, what is the experience of me when you're not inside this like skin, right? And so I think that that's really, really good. I would just add, what comes to mind here is that I'm going to wrap it in a little bit of, those of you who are very familiar with Founders Live, we have our core values and we have our ways of approaching how we want to be in the market and just be known. And had some recent experiences, especially team-wise, that actually I had to check ourselves and I had to check the team around that. And what happened was needed to let someone go, a part of the team, around the basic understanding that the way that this individual was operating was not in line or integrity-wise with the core values that we actually say. And the core values are not just like outwardly what we say, we need to live them internally as a team. And so that was one thing that I think, just even when you look at how you're approaching leadership in your team, is like having some things to kind of look at and say, are we aligned on these? Are we operating in a associated alignment with them or not? And if not, we need to change in certain ways. So, that was just something that came to mind. And, I had to let this person go, and it was not easy, and it was kind of painful for each individual. And, so I think that that's part of it.
Yeah. Just as a follow-up question on that, Nick, when you look back on that experience, what do you see as, what were the factors maybe inhibiting you from doing something that maybe you knew sooner rather than later, like that this was the right move, or what maybe led to it in looking in hindsight that now in the future you can take with you as kind of a lesson learned for running the team?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, just spoke with my coaches on this recently. What I identified post-mortem, if you will, was that the decisions I made early on to have this individual a part of the team. I was not, I started the whole process with not fully aligned, and it kind of kept almost kind of getting at me and getting worse over time. And so I sacrificed my integrity for short-term needs gains, or like one of those like, well, yeah, we need help and this person's going to come in and do it. And then, there was some ego stroke a little bit, through the experience, I think. So, my learning was to be a lot more clear. And when you have those little bubbles right here from your intuition, you have to listen to that. You cannot, well, we need things done, or trust me, like, and that's really good. So I think, that kind of falls into the 100x leader. Let's go into that a little more, because I think, I'm using a different, maybe a different kind of title term, but I think I'm going at the same thing, which is like, leveling up your leadership and being holistically aware of these things, understanding where, if there is misalignment, we got to go and let's go fix that. So dive a little deeper on that.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great framework or idea to wrap our minds around. I think the idea of 100% health is something that everyone can get around, because we know that that is, I think, like the idealistic goal. Now, is that possible? Probably not. Like, I think at the end of the day, you know, if we're 100% healthy, then we're probably being very selfish with our lives. You know, I think life requires us to be more in the 80 to 90% health, really, if we're being fair, honest, or selfless in the way we live. You know, as a professional athlete, my goal was to be 90 to 95% optimal, if not above. But as a normal human being, like I've kind of shifted that down to like 80% is good, you know, in the sense, because again, life is demanding and we have a lot of responsibilities, and there's more important things than just us in this world. Life is relational. So I think the idea of 100x leader means we pursue 100% health, and that means we're evaluating, okay, where am I in that pursuit? There's actually I'll share my screen again here. There's a great see here. There's another great tool called the Peace Index here, that I think is helpful in just examining this question. So the Peace Index shows kind of 5 key quadrants of what produces health in our life. So purpose, place, provision, personal health, and people. And these all contribute to our overall peace or inner peace or tranquility or even health in general. And by going through and just saying, okay, what percentage am I in each of these quadrants? What percentage is my life living on purpose? What percentage of my place is healthy and whole and a good environment or space to be? What percentage is my provision? Am I being provided for enough to sustain the life I want or to be able to cover all my needs? How's my personal health doing, right? Like, am I healthy? Am I eating good? Am I exercising? Am I feeling good? And then people, what are the people in my life? Are they contributing to it? Are they adding value or subtracting? And is that contributing to my overall peace or not? And so I think that's a great tool just to start of like saying, okay, what does 100% health look like? And maybe where am I percentage wise? By adding all those up and getting that kind of average score, that'll give us a good indication of, okay, this is kind of where I'm at. And here's an area that I need to focus on to help maybe ramp up that score of health. Because then once we get that health moving in the right direction, we all know this. Like, I think we all can relate to the times when we feel the least healthy are the times when we're the least able to serve others or to fulfill our role within our business or company. I know last week, my wife and we got food poisoning. And you know what? When you are just sicker than a dog in your house, you have no energy to care for anyone else, let alone yourself. You're barely just hanging on, trying to survive. So being healthy allows us then to multiply that to others. And that's why it definitely always starts with us. And I think it's so important just to have check-ins with ourselves to see, okay, where am I at? How am I doing? Because I think intuitively we all know when we're not. And that's where we can start checking in and getting a better bearing of it to start moving forward.
Mm-hmm. We touched on this during our podcast conversation, but, I want to be mindful that, what you just listed out I think is great. And I think, approaching, looking at these various aspects of health and trying to optimize and trying to like strive for like, 10 and, 100 in each, whatever, but people can go too far a little bit. Like, I think unfortunately there's this trait in people where the best intentions can like go off the cliff, and they're trying to be healthy and aligned, but they strive to that so far that they're now like depressed because they're like not fully there. And then it could almost be this like negative reinforcement. So how do you go about this without going too far and getting obsessed with all of this stuff,
Yeah. I think it's this fine line between like practicality versus possibility, and the ancient or probability versus possibility, I think, is a cool distinction here. So just briefly on that, a lot of times, like when we think about something like hope, if we're hopeful or something and we're filled with hope around something, the thing that limits hope a lot of times is probability. It's saying, is this probable outcome or not? So will this probably happen? If you look at the odds, it probably won't. And so I'm going to set my expectations to a certain level. If you live into what's more possible, like what is possible, meaning it may not be probable, but it's still possible, that can be a lot more hope filling. It gives us hope for pushing beyond where we're currently at, right? Now, the fine line comes from possible to improbable, right? Improbable means it's possible, probably not going to happen, but I'm still going to push for it. But then there's the impossible. There's something that's not physically possible, right? So that's one of the extremes that you're talking about, is saying like, hey, can I go run a 4-minute mile? Well, I know that it's no longer impossible. It's been done. But for me, that is actually impossible right now. Like, I can't do it. I know I can't. Now, if I trained and I started working towards that goal, then it becomes more and more possible, still improbable, but I can. So we have to understand what's realistic. The point is saying, like, what is realistic for you and for me, and knowing that each individual is different. Every person on this call is different than each other right now, and we shouldn't have the same expectations for each one of us as we do for ourselves. So that, again, goes to this piece of self-awareness. Do you understand what healthy means for you? Not for Maribel or Miriam, or Rosalva or Andre. What does it mean for you, Nick, to be healthy, right? What does it mean for me, Thane, to be healthy? And have that be an individual definition. And then also, what is practical or what is realistic? Meaning, life isn't about you. It isn't about me. It isn't about any individual on this call. It's about us. It's about we, right? Life is about relationships with one another. The world does not revolve around Nick. It doesn't revolve around Thane. It revolves around the sun. We're not even the point, right? And so by understanding that, we can say, oh, we're one of a collective. And so part of my role in life and my responsibility in life is to serve others with my gifts, my callings, my abilities. And if I'm going to do that, that means I can't be 100% focused on myself all the time. And I think that's the balancing factor that you're talking about, is saying, hey, am I too focused on myself right now that's actually hurting my health? Because part of our health is in relation with one another and serving one another. So that's some of my thoughts. What are your thoughts, Nick?
I think you're right on about that. And, my thoughts are, as I just kind of evaluate myself on this, again, it's my personal experience and my personal thing is I view a lot of things on a bell curve, and, striving for maximum optimal best in the world, like, can get pretty difficult and in a scary place. So, I just really focus on, like, okay, am I at that top of the bell curve right now? And knowing that there is another side, and that other side starts sliding down to a not as healthy, on crazy enough, too far is not healthy. And so, I just have this, like, bell curve kind of feeling measurement. And I feel pretty good right now on that. Like, I'm in a good place, and we are, look, and Luis is in here, who maybe can give some thoughts, but Luis is on the team, and we are rocking. Like, there is, like, I don't think Founders Live has been this alive, and the things that we're doing, and I mean, my calendar is crazy, and yet, like, I'm feeling really good. And so, some of that is, the ways that, going back into the 100X and 100% health, like, my meditations are, like, as long as I've ever been in my life every morning. And I'm like, I mean, they're, like, sometimes going an hour in the morning. I'm like, holy, but still feeling so present, and my exercise, kicking it back up, feeling good on that. And then optimizing just, like, the things that we're building. And, you do those health things and you realize your productivity improves, and you actually feel better when you're building things or creating whatever you're creating, because that balance actually is the alignment. So that's my thought. But Miriam mentions here, and if she wants to maybe come in as well, but flow. So, I know as an athlete, you probably experienced flow in some ways, but also now, so I'm curious your thoughts on this, but then Miriam, I would, if you want to come in as well on this, but, Thane, how do you see flow and achieve that? And how can people really stay in that space?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Miriam. I'm excited to hear as well from her. Just to touch on what you just shared, I think the last thing I'll mention on this idea of balance is kind of retraining our minds away from the Western mindset, which is hyper growth at all costs, of progress, instantaneous progress, or immediate gratification. This idea of what kind of generational impact can we leave is kind of foreign, especially, growing up in the West. And I've actually just started a book called The Overstory. It's a novel, but it's won a ton of awards, and I've had it highly recommended. I just started, but it's about trees. And, the thing about trees is they just grow very slowly, but they don't stop growing. And they can be there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And when you start thinking about trees, you start realizing this pace of growth that's sustainable is much different than what's often advertised or portrayed as the highest reward, especially in Western society. And this idea of, I had a couple of funerals of my grandparents this last year, and it made me really think about, man, what kind of legacy can I leave that lasts multiple generations, not just this next year? And that shift, I think, is really important. Like what you're talking about, then it balances us out of saying, okay, maybe I shouldn't be working an 80-hour work week. Maybe I should be thinking about dedicating time to meditation, to my actual physical health, to the relationships I care about in my life. And we start getting more of that equilibrium and that dance. So I love that you brought that up, Nick. And on flow, I think flow is definitely a state of hyper focus that's got to be one of the most addictive things, right? It's why there's a great book called I think it's The Art of Superman. And it's all about flow. And the examples they use are extreme athletes. Oh no, it's The Rise of Superman. That's what it's called. The Rise of Superman. And all the examples or illustrations you use are extreme athletes because they're the people who have to get in flow the most because their lives depend on it. If they don't, a lot of times they will die. And so they get forced into the state probably more than most people. The hard thing about golf was that it's a 4 to 5 hour round. So for you to sustain flow for 4 to 5 hours is virtually impossible. So you kind of had to work on, as a professional golfer, you have to work on getting into flow in increments. And one of the great ways to do that is by just having a proven process that helps you click in. So every time I get to my golf ball, I know exactly what I'm going to do every single time. I'm going to examine the factors. I'm going to start making calculations on what yardage I have, what the wind's doing, what the grass is doing, what my final number will be, how I'm feeling, what my swing's like, what my shot shape is, where my adrenaline's at, so I know whether to go up or down, what the elevation's doing, what the temperature is. Then you start saying, okay, this is the type of shot I want to hit. Then you have to focus in on the imagination, right? Of seeing exactly the shot you're going to hit before you hit it. You go through that process, you go through your pre-shot routine, and you step up and hit the shot. Now, by having that process that you don't even have to think about, that helps you lock in, that's a great way to kind of hack into it. And we can do that in our work too, right? By having a dedicated space or meditation, right? I think that meditation is a great example, right? Because it's hard to get into the focused meditation, but if you have your spot and your pre-meditation routine dialed in, if I go here, I sit cross-legged, I do this, I do a little breathing, then your body will much easier to shift into that flow state. And it's not perfect, but having those rituals or tools to lead into it really helps us. And that's one thing that I've found super helpful. But I'm curious to hear from Miriam or Maribel or whoever has some more thoughts.
Yeah, So my name is Maribel, everybody, and I help run a small business. And as we all know, running a business, a startup, can be hard at times, and especially during the pandemic. And so we have our ups and downs. And one thing for us is that has helped is that we have the same vision, we have the same goals, and everything else seems to fall into place on their own. But I'm just curious what other core value you would add to that thing.
Core values added to, say that again, core values you would add to, give me your core values again one more time.
Well, one core value that we share in common with my business partner and I is our vision, right? Our goals. We're on the same page, and like I mentioned, everything else seems to fall into place on their own. But you know, this is a small startup, and you know, we're always looking to you know, new ideas and.
That's good. Yeah. Nick, I'd love to hear from you on this, and I'll share a few thoughts briefly here. One thing is there's another great tool that I'm going to share real quick here called organizational clarity. And as you grow, I think this will serve you well in just thinking through what will be helpful for us to multiply throughout our team. And like you said, like that vision and values are really important to getting started, especially when it's just you and a partner. Do you guys have a shared vision that's clear and compelling? And do you have values that other people know that you live by, right? Like that's the key indicator, I think, of values. And as you start integrating those, it leads to the strategies or initiatives you use that'll help you succeed in life and in work. Now, as you multiply and build, then you start talking about, okay, is this strategy or initiative helping create healthier, thriving cultures and atmospheres for our team? And do we have the right systems and structures in place to enable people to live that out well? And then finally, getting down to the tactics, as you get more and more people on your team, then you have to start saying, do these individuals feel aligned to our overall direction of our organization and where we're heading? And I think those are the questions that you're going to have to start asking as you grow. But I think you're off to a great start, and it does take intentionality at each step of the way. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is so great. This is a awesome question. And I'm sharing, I literally read this article last night, and I'm going to share it in the chat as well. In NFX, they are a VC firm that I'm really starting to follow, and everything they push out is just amazing. And so I gotta let Luis back in here. All right, Luis, there you go. So it's really around the pyramid of co-founder success. And part of your question here sounds like really, I would just say read this article, but what I'll touch on is these three things. He basically says values, your core values, basically, what are the core tenets of healthy relationships in this team, operating principles, basically what are the operating structures within the team and in the partnership, reinforcing those core values, and failure modes. So what are the patterns that kind of lead and signal failure? And then how are you like recovering from those versus allowing it to go down over the cliff? And you know, it's a really good article, but I mean, it's deep. And so I think it just kind of is really an addition to what you're talking about, Thane. And, you know, in terms of, you know, so my answer quickly is communication, and really diving deep on these sort of things to communicate to your partner, your teammates, like, hey, where are we at in all this? And it's a continual, it's not just like have one meeting and then, oh, we're good on all this. It's like you're continually refining these things and how you, you know, lead and how you are working with your team, you know, whether they're co-founders or not. So I think this is really good. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. You know, so we have just a few more minutes actually. Is there some other thoughts, questions, you know, anything that was, you know, we've got Luis here, Andre, really good to see you all here. And, you know, how is this resonating with you all?
This is great. I'm in a strange situation. I've been a founder, but it's years ago. I've had a regular job for 3.5 years. It's coming to an end in 3 months. And I feel like this is a blank slate. I don't need to do what I've been doing before. But I have not really found clarity in terms of even what to look for. So what you presented, looking from different quadrants, looking at different aspects of your life is good, because we can forget about one aspect. We can forget about our health. It's very easy when to forget about one quadrant. So this has been very positive. If you have any suggestion for somebody who's thinking, do I want to go back to the same thing, or do I want something new?
This is a great question. Andre, I think a great question, because Thane, you know, he's been through this, like he actually, you know, in the last few years, and Thane, definitely jump in, and I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this.
Yes, really good question, Andre. You're not alone. I think we will all be in that place multiple times throughout our life, and if we're not being honest with ourselves. So again, I think tools are really helpful, like you said. So understanding like that, the peace index, those 5 things, looking at that, saying, okay, where am I at? What is lacking, or what feels like it's not at health yet? And how can my work contribute to that? The other aspect, like we talked about already, is that identity piece. You know, as you look at your experience thus far, as you look at your life thus far, seeing, okay, you know, those natural abilities, what are you wired at, good at? But for you especially, like, what have your life experiences given you that are unique to you? Because I guarantee you, no one else has the same experience that you do. And so by understanding, okay, what is that really unique experiential benefit that I have for my work experience, my life experience, my travel abroad, whatever it may be experience. And then get into that, really, like, what gets you excited? You know, at the end of the day, like, I really believe that each one of us has something unique that we can offer in service to others and get rewarded for that. So, and that reward is just a living, right? And it could be intrinsic reward as well. And so by understanding and sitting with that, it could be as simple as a pen and a paper and an hour of time, and just sitting there and trying to dive into that will really do you well as you move forward. This idea, I think that the last thing I'll say is there's a great picture of just thinking about, okay, what do I love doing? What am I good at? What does the world need? And what will the world pay for, right? And I think that convergence of those 4 things is the gold that we're all looking for. Because, you know, if you look between like what I love and what I'm good at, well, that convergence is more probably a hobby, or, you know, it's like going snowboarding. I love it and I'm pretty good at it, you know, but no one's going to pay me to go snowboarding. I mean, I'm not that good, you know? But if you think about, okay, what does the world need and what will it pay for? Well, that's usually just a vocation, right? That's just something you do for a living. But it doesn't really give you energy or life or fulfillment. So I think in this period when you're in transition, it actually offers an awesome opportunity to sit with that kind of quadrant and say, what is in the middle of all those things that I can do that I'm uniquely skilled at? And that can be a great place to start.
All right. Thank you.
I really, really like the way you illustrated that. Luis.
Hey, it's funny that you brought up Rise of Superman, because, and when talking about flow, because I mean, obviously that's kind of the book, one of the great examples of that. But you had also earlier mentioned, and maybe the running a 4-minute mile, but that's a specific example in that book or something similar. The idea of the perception of something being impossible until somebody does it, and then it opens the floodgates. So it's kind of interesting where the barriers are, whether they're physical or perceptual. And it's kind of an interesting thing that, like, you know, that to help people maybe feel a little more bold, that sometimes it's just, you know, do the thing, and then, or, you know, keep trying to do the thing that nobody else has done, especially as a founder, and you might actually break through on that. You know, the whole idea of putting on your oxygen mask before helping others is a good analogy for what you were talking about earlier too, and what you were echoing or saying in the first place about self-care. But I think that as that all relates to flow, I think one thing that I tend to do, or at least I romanticize that I do, is that there are times when you are in flow, and there are times when you really aren't, and being able to recognize those times and step on the gas and do what you can, either to stay in it or just like be like, okay, this is a good productive state. I know normally I'll meditate, you know, I might have to skip my meditation today because I don't want to interrupt this rare thing that I'm in, and just, you know, I guess what I'm saying is milk it while you got it, especially if you don't have perfect control over making it happen, and vice versa. When you're not feeling it, don't waste time trying to make it happen. Take care of yourself, do other things, and you know, just try to have that awareness. And then, you know, it's awesome if you can start to control the elements that get you into flow. I'm not in control of that yet, but it's a good pursuit.
That's awesome. This is such a great conversation, everyone. And, you know, unfortunately, it's like, we gotta close it up. We gotta close it up for the day. But you know, Thane, clearly we'll have some more. So really excited. We'll plan on that. But, you know, I want to give you the last word.
Well, yeah, I just appreciate hearing from you guys today. It's always a pleasure just to have a conversation. You know, we generate a lot of creativity and ideas through sharing ideas and fleshing them out in conversation. So thank you, Nick, for putting on this forum and this opportunity to do just that. It helps me think better, and hopefully helps each other think better. And then ultimately it's about living better. And so how can we apply this and take this forward? And so, you know, for anyone listening, just think about like, what's the one thing that hit me today, kind of at the center, at the core, and how can I take it past this call? How can I take it past this hour and apply it by just doing one simple thing today?
That's a great thought to leave everyone with. So, you know, thank you, Thane. We have, you know, dropped your information in the chat. So, you know, definitely take a look at his website, books, courses. So great. And, you know, is there a way for them to reach out to you if they have more questions?
Yeah, definitely. Let me put my email here in the box.